So I'm not guilty, but I'm still going away?
NGRI means not guilty for reasons of insanity. You're not guilty of murder.
You'll be moved to the Wards Island Forensic Psychiatric Center for a period of time.
But I can't leave.
No, not for a while. You'll be under observation.
I'm not crazy. You know I'm not crazy.
The movie opens in an apartment where bloodstains cover the floor and a wrapped present sits on a chair. It's clear something terrible has happened. The story then jumps back 3 months earlier. We meet Emily, who is visiting her husband Martin in prison. After talking for a while, she says goodbye and heads to work. Before leaving, she tells her boss that she won't be coming in the next day because it's an important day for her. Her boss understands and gives her the day off, knowing she's been through a lot.
Sure, there's more to it than what's on the news.
We soon learn that Martin was sent to prison for insider trading. The next day, Emily and her mother-in-law arrive at the prison to pick him up after his 4-year sentence. They're both excited to finally have him home. Once they're back at their apartment, Emily and Martin enjoy being together again. The following morning, Emily gets into her car and starts driving. Out of nowhere, she suddenly crashes her car into a wall on purpose. After the accident, we meet psychologist Dr. Jonathan Banks, a psychiatrist. After hearing about Emily's condition, he agrees to become her doctor. Emily only ends up with a small injury on her forehead. Physically, she's fine, but Banks is more concerned about her mental state. He believes the crash may have been a suicide attempt and recommends that she stay in the hospital for observation. Emily refuses. She insists it was just an accident and says she wants to be with her husband now that he's finally home.
A brick wall's a pretty good reason to use the brakes.
After talking with both of them, Banks agrees to let her leave, but only if she comes back for a follow-up appointment within a week. He also gives her a prescription for some basic antidepressants. A few days later, Emily returns for her checkup. Banks notices that her depression has likely been going on for much longer than she's admitted, so he asks if she has ever been treated before. Emily tells him that 4 years earlier, while living in Connecticut, she saw another psychiatrist named Dr. Victoria Siebert for about 9 months. But after moving away, she stopped going to therapy. Thinking it could help with Emily's treatment, Banks decides to speak with Dr. Victoria himself. Victoria explains that Emily had a difficult childhood because she'd never felt accepted by her father. Later in life, she finally found someone she loved, but then Martin was sent to prison. On top of that, the couple lost their home and most of their belongings when his assets were taken. All of those events pushed Emily into a deep depression. Victoria says she tried treating Emily with different antidepressants, but they didn't help much. She suggests trying a newer medication instead, which has shown better results for some patients.
Well, maybe that will help turn things around.
That evening, Emily and Martin are invited to a party. At first, Martin doesn't think it's a good idea because he knows crowded places can be overwhelming for her, but Emily wants to give it a try. For a while, things actually go well. Emily talks with people, smiles, and seems to be doing okay. But as the party gets busier, she starts feeling uncomfortable. Wanting a break from the crowd, she quietly walks over to the bar and orders a soda. A coworker notices that she isn't feeling well and shares her own experience. She explains that she was diagnosed with a tumor the previous year, which left her feeling depressed. Her doctor prescribed an antidepressant called Ablixa, and it helped her recover. Still, she isn't in the mood to stay any longer. She finds Martin, and the two leave the party. The next day, Emily is waiting for the subway when she suddenly starts walking toward the tracks. Before she can get too close, a police officer quickly pulls her back. She goes straight to see Dr. Banks and tells him everything. Emily says Martin has started working again, and she's trying to move on with her life, but her depression keeps getting in the way. Since the medication she's taking doesn't seem to be helping, she wants to try something else. She brings up the drug her coworker mentioned, Ablixa. She's seen commercials for it and hopes it might work better. Banks doesn't see any problem with trying it, so he writes her a prescription.
Have you taken Ablixa before?
No.
That evening, Banks attends a dinner hosted by a pharmaceutical company. They are developing a new antidepressant and want experienced psychiatrists to work as consultants. Since the other two doctors invited couldn't make it, Banks accepts the offer himself. The consulting job pays very well, around $50,000 a year, so it's an opportunity he doesn't want to turn down. After starting Ablixa, Emily begins to feel much better. Her mood improves, and she becomes more comfortable around other people. She can hold conversations normally again, and for the first time in a long while, she seems like herself. Martin is happy to see the change. He starts believing their life is finally getting back on track, but one night, he's suddenly woken up by loud music. When he goes to check, he finds Emily in the kitchen making breakfast while music plays in the background. The strange part is that it's the middle of the night. Martin thinks maybe she's preparing for unexpected guests, but when he talks to her, she doesn't respond at all. After watching her for a moment, he realizes she's actually sleepwalking. The next morning, Martin takes Emily back to see Dr. Banks. He explains what happened and says the sleepwalking only started after Emily began taking Ablixa. He wants her to stop using the medication and switch to something else. Emily refuses. She explains that before taking Ablixa, every afternoon around 3 o'clock, she felt completely drained, like she was trapped in a heavy mental fog. Since starting the new medication, that feeling has disappeared. She even says that if stopping the medication is the only option, she'd rather find a different doctor instead. Banks thinks it over and comes up with another plan. Instead of changing the antidepressant, he prescribes an additional medication to help control the sleepwalking, while allowing Emily to continue taking Ablixa. The next afternoon, Emily has another rough day. While riding the subway, she gets so lost in her thoughts that she misses her stop and ends up going farther than she intended. By the time she gets home, she takes her medication and goes straight to bed to rest. Later that evening, Martin comes home after work. As soon as he walks in, he notices a wrapped gift sitting on the sofa. He smiles and heads toward the kitchen after hearing someone cutting vegetables. Without warning, Emily turns around and stabs him with a kitchen knife. She's sleepwalking again. This time, instead of simply making food in her sleep, she repeatedly attacks Martin until he collapses. After that, she calmly goes back to bed and continues sleeping as if nothing happened. The next morning, the officers arrive and begin examining the house. Security footage shows that no one else entered the home during the night. They also find only Emily's fingerprints on the knife, and there is blood on her feet, making her the main suspect. Dr. Banks is informed about the incident and quickly heads to the scene. Emily hasn't hired a lawyer yet. While speaking with the police, she keeps asking for Banks instead. From the evidence, the investigators believe it could be a planned murder. They also point out that antidepressants can sometimes affect a person's behavior, although that alone doesn't explain what happened. After hearing the details, Banks believes Emily most likely attacked Martin while sleepwalking. Since sleepwalking is a known side effect of Ablixa, he thinks she may have had no idea what she was doing. If that's true, she wouldn't have remembered anything after waking up. The police know Banks well because they've worked with him on previous cases. They explain that the case will likely come down to two possibilities. Either Emily knowingly killed her husband, or the medication played a major role, making this a case of medical malpractice. If the second theory is accepted, Banks could end up facing a civil lawsuit because he was the doctor who prescribed the medication. That means his testimony will be one of the most important parts of the trial.
I don't understand why this is happening.
The following day, Emily's lawyer shows Banks information about similar cases. There have been several incidents where people committed violent acts while sleepwalking, and in some of those cases, the courts ruled that they weren't legally responsible because they weren't conscious of their actions. If Emily's case is judged the same way, there's a good chance she'll also be found not guilty. That puts Banks in a difficult position. If he testifies that Emily was sleepwalking, it could help clear her name, but it may also raise questions about his decision to prescribe Ablixa and hurt his career. On the other hand, if he argues that Emily was fully aware of what she was doing, he would be going against what he truly believes happened. A few days later, Emily is allowed to attend Martin's funeral under supervision. After the service, she speaks with her mother-in-law and apologizes. Emily says she still doesn't understand exactly what happened that night. If she'd known what was going to happen, she says she would have rather lost her own life than Martin's. Before leaving, Emily hands her a note. She asks her to read it during the press conference after the funeral. The message is about Ablixa and its possible side effects. Emily says she doesn't want anyone else to go through the same thing.
I just don't understand how it happened.
Although Emily's intentions are good, the statement quickly attracts a lot of attention. The company that makes Ablixa comes under heavy criticism, and Dr. Banks also finds himself in the middle of the controversy. Many people begin questioning his decisions, and medical authorities open an investigation into his treatment of Emily. His wife loses her job, and with 2 children attending expensive private schools and a mortgage to pay, money becomes a serious concern. To keep up with the bills, Banks starts taking on extra work wherever he can. The long hours leave him exhausted, and it becomes harder to keep up with everything. Even though he repeatedly explains that he followed normal medical practice and made every decision based on his professional judgment, very few people are willing to believe him. Not long after, Emily's trial begins. Several witnesses support her case. One of them is the police officer who stopped her from stepping onto the subway tracks earlier. Her medical records also show that she had been struggling with severe depression for years. On top of that, doctors confirm that sleepwalking is a known side effect of Ablixa. Since people who sleepwalk aren't fully aware of their actions, Emily may not have understood what she was doing when Martin was killed. After reviewing all the evidence, the court decides that Emily is not legally guilty of murder. However, the judge also believes she still needs treatment. Instead of sending her to prison, Emily is ordered to stay at a psychiatric hospital. She will remain there until doctors decide the medication has fully left her system and she is no longer a danger to herself or others. Soon after the trial, the hospital where he works receives a letter about one of his former patients named Allison. Years earlier, when Banks was still a medical intern, Allison had visited him several times for treatment. She was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but she later died by suicide. In the long note she left behind, Allison claimed that Banks had taken her to London and that the two had been involved in a romantic relationship. Banks immediately explains that none of it was true. He says the claims came from Allison's illness and were part of her delusions.
Do you think I screwed up?
The old story quickly spreads, and some begin wondering if Banks had an inappropriate relationship with Emily as well. Others even start questioning whether Martin's death was really just a tragic side effect of the medication, or if there was something more going on behind the scenes. Wanting to understand what really happened, Banks starts researching Ablixa on his own. While looking through medical articles, he finds something interesting. Years earlier, Dr. Victoria, Emily's former psychiatrist, had written a paper about the drug. In it, she clearly mentioned that Ablixa could cause sleepwalking as a side effect. When he first spoke with Victoria, she recommended the medication and described it as a newer antidepressant that could help patients. But she never mentioned the risk of sleepwalking. Curious, Banks visits Victoria and asks her about it. Victoria explains that her job was to help Emily, not compete with another doctor. She says bringing up every detail of her own research might have sounded like she was trying to show off or question Banks's judgment. Her answer makes sense, but Banks still isn't fully convinced. During the conversation, Victoria casually mentions that Emily had sleepwalked more than once. That surprises Banks because, as far as he knows, nobody had shared that information with her directly. For a moment, Victoria seems caught off guard. Then she quickly says she learned it from the news. Emily's mother-in-law had spoken about the sleepwalking during a press conference, so her explanation sounds believable.
How do you know that?
He visits the parking lot where Emily crashed her car. Since Emily only suffered a minor head injury, Banks wonders if the car wasn't moving very fast, but the parking manager tells him the opposite. According to him, the car was traveling at a high speed before the crash. He also mentions that Emily had fastened her seatbelt. If Emily truly wanted to end her life, why would she buckle up first? It makes him question whether the crash was really a suicide attempt at all. Still looking for answers, Banks goes to Emily's workplace and speaks with her boss. The boss says she remembers how badly Emily struggled after Martin went to prison. She also shares her own experience with depression. She describes it as feeling like a thick, poisonous fog covering your mind and making it hard to do anything. Banks immediately recognizes the description. Emily had used those exact same words during one of their appointments. When he asks about it, the boss laughs and says she didn't come up with the phrase herself. She had read it in a book. Banks starts wondering if Emily may have copied some of the things she said from books instead of describing her own feelings. Not long after, Banks gets a call from the pharmaceutical company he had been consulting for. Because of all the negative attention surrounding Emily's case, they decide to end their contract with him. The company apologizes, saying it isn't a personal decision, but something they have to do. While thinking about everything that's happened, Banks notices something interesting. After the news about Ablixa spread, the company's stock price dropped sharply. At the same time, the stock of one of its biggest competitors suddenly went up by almost 30%. If Emily really wasn't mentally ill and had been pretending all along, then Martin's death may have been planned from the start. But Martin had just gotten out of prison. He didn't have a life insurance policy, and there wasn't any money or property for Emily to inherit. So why would anyone want him dead? If someone knew the scandal would hurt Ablixa's manufacturer, they could buy shares in the competing company ahead of time and make a huge profit once the news became public. Wanting to test his suspicions, Banks visits Emily at the psychiatric hospital. This time, he tells her he's going to use a truth serum during their interview. He explains that he'll ask a few questions, record her answers, and use the results to better understand what really happened. He also mentions that the drug can make people sleepy. The interview begins with a few simple questions. Before long, Emily closes her eyes and appears to fall asleep. Banks ends the session and later takes the recording to the prosecutor's lawyer. Then he reveals the truth. There never was a truth serum. Instead, Emily had only been given a harmless saline injection. If she pretended to fall asleep because she believed the drug was working, it could mean she was trying to fool him. To Banks, that makes her behavior look suspicious. Even so, the lawyer explains that it doesn't really change anything. Emily has already been found not guilty. Because of the legal principle of double jeopardy, she can't be tried again for the same crime, even if new evidence appears later. The lawyer tells Banks that continuing to investigate won't change the court's decision.
It proves we got beat.
His best option is to move on with his life and leave the case behind. Banks tries to do exactly that. As he's preparing to leave the psychiatric hospital, he casually looks through the visitor records. There, he notices something unexpected. Dr. Victoria's name appears on Emily's visitor list. The discovery immediately catches his attention. Banks starts wondering if Victoria has been involved in the case from the beginning. The more he thinks about it, the more he suspects that she and Emily may have been working together. Later that day, Banks goes to see Victoria. Instead of accusing her directly, he tells her that he'll continue treating Emily himself. Since Emily's release depends on her progress, Banks makes it clear that he isn't stepping away from the case.
I don't understand your thinking.
Victoria doesn't react well to the news. Soon afterward, Banks's wife receives an anonymous envelope from Victoria. Inside are several photos of Banks meeting with Emily during her treatment, along with a few revealing pictures of Emily that make the situation look much more suspicious than it really is. Because of the old rumors from Banks's time in college, his wife has a hard time trusting him. Angry and hurt, she takes their children and moves in with her parents for a while. That same evening, Banks receives a voice message from Dr. Victoria. She asks him to meet for coffee and openly admits that she was the one who sent the photos. Then she gives him a simple warning. If he lets Emily leave the hospital without causing any trouble, the photos will stay private. If not, she'll release everything and make the situation even worse. Banks doesn't give in. Instead, he tells Victoria that she should enjoy the money she made from the stock market while she still can, because it could end up being taken away if the truth comes out. He also lies and says that Emily has already confessed everything. Victoria immediately reacts with surprise. She asks if Banks used a truth serum on Emily. That response is exactly what Banks wanted. He never told anyone about the fake truth serum except Emily. So hearing Victoria mention it makes him even more certain that the two have been communicating. Now Banks decides to put more pressure on Emily. Back at the psychiatric hospital, he tells the staff that her condition has become worse. Until further notice, no one is allowed to visit her, and she isn't allowed to make any phone calls. He then shows Emily a treatment session where patients with severe depression receive electroconvulsive therapy, also known as ECT. Banks explains that the treatment can help certain patients, but it's only used in specific situations under medical supervision. He then tells Emily that she'll be starting the same treatment. Emily is clearly frightened and immediately asks for a different doctor. Banks refuses. He then tells her something else. According to him, Victoria paid him a large amount of money to stay in charge of Emily's treatment. He even suggests that the money probably came from Emily's share of their profits. To make the story more believable, Banks plays part of the recorded phone conversation where Victoria invited him for coffee. During the call, she also briefly mentions electroconvulsive therapy, making it sound like the idea came from her. Emily starts wondering if Victoria has been planning to betray her all along. With no phone and no visitors allowed, she has no way to contact Victoria and ask what's really going on. Meanwhile, Banks makes another move. He calls Victoria himself and asks her to come to the hospital. When she arrives, Banks greets her warmly. He shakes her hand, pats her on the shoulder, and acts as if they're working closely together. The moment Emily sees them together, her doubts grow even stronger. From her point of view, it looks like Banks and Victoria have teamed up behind her back. After making sure Emily has seen everything, Banks quickly ends the conversation and sends Victoria away. That night, Emily spends hours thinking about the situation. By the next morning, she's made up her mind. She asks to speak with Banks privately. Emily offers him a deal. If he helps her get out of the hospital, she'll tell him the truth about everything that really happened. Banks agrees to the deal, and Emily starts spitting out the truth. Emily finally tells Banks how everything began. 5 years earlier, she met Martin, a handsome and wealthy man. He drove expensive cars, lived in a huge house, and gave Emily the life she had always dreamed of. But things changed just before their wedding. Martin was arrested for financial crimes, and the police discovered that his fortune had been built through illegal activities. His assets were taken away, and the comfortable life Emily expected disappeared overnight. The sudden change hit her hard. She became depressed and started seeing Dr. Victoria for treatment. During their sessions, Emily opened up about her childhood. She explained that she never felt accepted by her father, and after everything that happened with Martin, she completely lost trust in men. Victoria realized they had more in common than she expected. Her own husband had left her for a younger woman, and she was still bitter about it. The two women became very close, and over time, their relationship went far beyond that of a doctor and patient. According to Emily, that's when everything started. Victoria taught her how to pretend to have symptoms of depression and make her behavior seem believable. In return, Emily shared what she had learned about stock trading from Martin, who had experience in the financial world. When Martin was finally released from prison, they decided it was time to put their plan into action. Banks asks Emily when she first decided to kill her husband. Emily says it wasn't one single moment. Instead, The idea slowly grew over the years. Whenever she struggled because of Martin's crimes, or felt frustrated with her life, she blamed him for everything. Eventually, she convinced herself that if he were gone, her problems would disappear too. Then she admits the biggest truth of all. On the night Martin died, she wasn't sleepwalking. She was fully awake and completely aware of what she was doing when she killed him. With that confession, Banks finally knows the full story. But it doesn't really change anything. Emily has already been found not guilty, and the case is closed. Banks has also lost his reputation because of everything that happened. Whether the truth comes out now or not won't undo the damage. Emily realizes what Banks is thinking and offers him a deal. A few days later, Banks submits a report to the court saying that Emily has made significant progress. He states that her mental condition is stable. She no longer poses a danger to herself or others, and she's ready to be released from the psychiatric hospital. The court accepts his recommendation. However, Emily is warned that if she breaks the conditions of her release or shows signs of another serious episode, she could be taken back into custody. After leaving the hospital, Emily goes to meet Victoria. By this point, Victoria has already moved the money they earned into overseas accounts for safekeeping, but Emily no longer trusts her former doctor. During their conversation, she carefully leads Victoria into talking about their plan. Without realizing it, Victoria admits to several crimes.
Do I look sad now?
Including illegal stock trading and helping cover up Martin's murder. As Emily and Victoria talk about what they'll do next, Victoria notices something hidden under Emily's clothes. It's a recording device. She immediately realizes what's happened and accuses Emily of betraying her. Emily admits she recorded the conversation but says Victoria left her with no other choice. Before Victoria can leave, police officers arrive outside. After listening to the recording, they arrest her on charges related to fraud, insider trading, and helping plan Martin's murder. The next day, Emily confidently walks into Dr. Banks's office. She expects everything to be over now and assumes Banks will keep his side of their deal. Instead, he hands her a new prescription. Emily is confused. Banks also tells her that as part of the conditions for her release, she'll need to take regular medication and come in for weekly urine tests to prove she's following her treatment plan. He warns her that if she refuses or breaks any of the rules, she could be sent back to the psychiatric hospital. Emily is furious. She reminds Banks about their agreement and accuses him of going back on his word. Banks stays calm. He tells her that if she continues acting aggressively, he'll have no choice but to report her behavior, which could lead to her being hospitalized again. Realizing he isn't bluffing, Emily storms out of the office. Outside, she runs into her lawyer and Martin's mother. By now, Martin's mother knows the truth. Emily quickly notices several police officers waiting near the building. Within moments, they move in and arrest her once again. This time, she's taken back into custody. In the final scenes, Banks begins putting his own life back together. He reconnects with his wife and children, and after everything he's been through, things slowly start returning to normal. Meanwhile, Emily is back at the psychiatric hospital. This time, she no longer seems like the calm and controlled person she once was, suggesting that her mental state has finally started to fall apart.